Hello everyone, I'm Himasutha and today I'll be interviewing Miss Shalaka. She owns the library Curious Kids and she graduated from the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore in the year of 1997, and she also worked as an HR manager in the Johnson& Johnson Medical for quite a few years, and she worked as a senior manager in the Indian School of Business before she started her own library. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Known.
Good afternoon. So during this interview today, we'll deep dive into her life and get to know more about the setbacks of starting their own company or her educational journey and a lot more. So, Shalaka, could you tell me a little bit about your educational journey to start off?
So went to a convent school, did graduation. So I'm a BA in sociology. Went on to do my master's in sociology from Bombay University. Taught for 2 years while I was studying to give my civil services, which is the IS exams.
Nice exams. Hmm.
And while I was studying, I was also a lecturer at Elphinstone College, which was my alma mater.
Hmm.
Did my master's, didn't clear the IS exam, but I always wanted to do an MBA. So I
MBA.
went
Hmm.
on to do an MBA. The only call I got from during my MBA was from IIM Bangalore. And that I had to convert because that's what I wanted to do.
Do. Hmm.
And I was doing this against my father's wishes. So
Hmm.
I had to crack the GD and the interview.
Hmm.
And finally, he went with me for it.
Hmm.
I cracked it. I did my MBA. It's tough. It's easy getting in.
Hmm.
It's very difficult getting out.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, you worked hard. You had fun.
Hmm.
More fun than studies. That you will find out on your own journey. Yes, got out of there. Worked at IMRB. Worked at Quantum Market Research. So used my sociology background and MBA to
Hmm.
actually do qualitative market research, which is very different than quantitative market research.
Okay. Hmm.
After that, have I done other things in educational field? No, it's been more in terms of whatever training I had on at various jobs. So
Hmm.
have I added beyond my MA sociology and an MBA? No, I haven't. So that's the educational background for you.
Okay, thank you for sharing it, ma'am. And also, before starting your own library, you worked as a HR manager and a senior manager and everything. Did those roles give you enough real life exposure um, before you could start your own company? Was it easier for you to start your own company because you worked as an HR manager and senior manager and everything before?
I'm an avid reader,
Hmm.
and what I started the library has been a passionate thing with me. So it's just that much easier to do it. It doesn't seem like work. It seems like fun because you're doing what you love. Did my practical career help me to a large extent to deal with people? Yes. But in terms of setting it up, no, because when you join organizations, they're already set up. They have their own setup, they have their own rules, they have their entire infrastructure in place.
Hmm.
When you're starting out on your own, you're not exposed to that.
Hmm.
And so, yes, the stumbling blocks from me were the infrastructure, getting all of that in place, the
Hmm.
practicality of it. But that helps in, funnily, comes from your home, setting up multiple homes,
Hmm.
moving to multiple locations, getting on transferred to different cities. That helps you set up a new home in flat 10 days or 15 days flat, and then because you have to get back to work. So that helped me to actually set up infrastructurally the library. But what I wanted for the library is something I grew up on, a library.
Hmm.
And I wanted children to have it. My kid, when I looked in my area, which is Andheri West in Mumbai, there were no libraries, no physical libraries for children.
Hmm.
So either you bought books for yourself, which is self consumption, or you borrowed and shared with your friends. A library concept did not exist, which gives you an exposure to so much more. So I decided that I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
And it was like overnight decided, okay, I'm going to do this. Luckily, I had space. I had my another apartment where I could start off from. So that's where I built it out from.
Hmm.
Grew it for 3 years in the from home. and grew it as a parent, as a mother, that I'd want my child to read, and as a librarian, where I took feedback from the children that came and said, what is it that they would want to read? What should they be reading? Never emphasizing and saying that, you must read this, but going with the child where whatever stage the child is in. So you could be a, a 10-year-old, but your interest lies in, say, a 7-year-old book, a book for 7 plus, and that's fine. That's fine. I went with that. I never looked at your age. How old are you? And therefore you should read this. No. If you were younger and you were a reader, then I have recommended books for 10 plus, 12 plus. Of course, 12 plus is with keeping the parents in the loop,
Mm.
saying that, they shouldn't be surprised that why is my child reading something so advanced, or something that's a topic that my child may not understand. But the guys who actually read do understand all of that, even at an older age book, older age level book.
Mm.
So that's been the journey, and it's been both a yes and a no for everything else. The MBA, of course, helps you set up the processes. Okay, so yes, to that extent, your educational does help. By being sociologist, you do understand the requirement. So has it all played? I guess it has. I mean, you don't really think about it that way, because when you're following your passion, it all just comes into place.
Yes, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yes, ma'am. And also, were there any other setbacks that you faced before starting the library?
Okay. The biggest challenge is time. When you have two kids who are a newborn and a 3-year-old, so you're actually juggling between the two of them. And it was more in terms of keeping my sanity that I started it also, where I have a 3-year-old who is reading. She was devouring books. So between her and me and managing the kids, I said, before I drive anybody else up the wall, I better start doing something that I enjoy. And that's how we started the library. We, in fact, the library. I started the library with my kids' books
Mm-hmm.
and some books that we had that were extra. So they're the first contributors to my library. And believe me when I say this, for a number of years that I ran the library, I am the first choice for a lot of parents to donate their children's books. And I got books in absolutely pristine condition. I've had people give me very expensive books, and these are all donations. Huh? I'm not paying for them,
Mm.
and it just makes you very happy that and they'll come back and tell you that it's very nice what you're doing. So yes, it's very satisfying. Challenges, like I said, it was my time. I had to give it everything I had. Of course, there were days when if the kids run well, um, I wouldn't open the library. And, because you're in a public space, in a service sector, you're expected to be available 24/7.
Mm.
What I did do have a challenge with was getting the right kind of people to work for me. I have I've interviewed I don't know how many people. Everybody who wants a job will say, "Yeah, we love books. Yes, we read."
That's true.
But this is the age group that has a mobile in the hand and wants free Wi-Fi. So they got the Wi-Fi. I refused to give them a laptop or a desktop because I needed them to be one with the books and know what it was. So if a child walks in or a parent walks in and asks you, I like my child likes this book. Do you have something similar? Unless you're a reader, you're not going to be able to help them find similar books if you're
Mm.
going to be stuck in your mobile.
Yeah.
So I used to employ people. I've had my shortest turnaround has been a day.
Mm.
So this girl joined me. It was her first day of job. Very excited, Miss Ma'am. I'm ready. I will do very well. I will. I love books.
Mm.
All the promises. By the end of the day, when I asked her, okay, I see you tomorrow, and she says, actually, ma'am, I got another job. Can I go, please? So that was a 1 day turnaround.
Mm.
I've had 1 week turnarounds. After a point of time, I stopped looking. So I used to run it on my own. So that becomes a challenge. When you're running it on your own, because you have certain standards that you want to maintain,
Hmm.
and you don't find people who believe in the same thing. They'd look at me and say, "But ma'am, why are you reading these children's books?"
Hmm.
I'm like, when I grew up, half these books were not available. And if you're a reader, it really doesn't matter what genre you're reading, what age you're reading. Reading is a passion. So you read everything, whether fiction, non-fiction, children's, tweens, early teenagers, early readers, all of that. Young readers, all of those you'll read. So yeah, those were my primary challenges. One was my time, and the second was getting in good staff that
Hmm.
understood what it meant to run a library.
Hmm. And then also, ma'am, you know how a lot of children in this generation, they started reading books on these things called Kindle, Wattpad, and everything. Do you feel there's a major difference between reading books on Kindle, Wattpad, and between the physical books and everything?
Okay, so I have a confession to make. I read physical. I also have my own Kindle. So I read digital also. I enjoy graphic novels as much as I enjoy my fiction, non-fiction, all of the other stuff.
Mhm.
So the younger generation is going towards digital. And though my library was for children from one or from birth to 15 years of age, my number of members dwindled after they turned 12, because then the Kindle is there. The Kindle has better options, which is true. I will not keep a book which one member likes or my one member recommends.
Mhm.
I will ask for the same recommendation from at least a minimum 5 or 6 members to actually get it physically, get the book. Again, I still think a book at as a child, the physical book is the best way to do it, because when you go digital, and I would avoid watching the movies that come out based on books. So it lets your imagination grow, and as a child, your imagination is crazy. I mean, you can go anywhere. As you grow older, you start understanding things, and it gets compartmentalized. When you're reading a book, you can actually pause, think, write in the margins of the book. Of course, if it's your personal book, not your library book, but if it's your personal book, you've done things like that. You've highlighted maybe quotes. Yes, I understand you can do all of this in the Kindle. You can do this in the Kindle,
Mhm.
but it still doesn't have the feel of having a book and going to sleep with it.
Also, do you feel like in starting your own library right now, it's one of the best things that you ever did because you quit all the HR manager jobs and everything that you had. And according to the society, they look upon the HR manager roles and everything to be insanely good, and like they value those jobs a lot. And they say, for example, the other day I was looking at an instance where someone was starting their own bakery, but apparently the person he worked in another firm, and everyone looked down upon him because he turned down a role that was paying him an insane load of money. So, do you think should people consider money over following their passion or something?
See, setting up a business is a personal choice. Sometimes is your own journey. So whatever drives you, if it's money, so be it. But then you're very clear on that. If it is something else that's driving you, then be clear about it.
Mhm.
So, for example, let me give you two examples. When I got my job at ISB in Hyderabad, I also got a job with GE as an operation manager, starting their operations in Hyderabad. I got those offers both on the same day. GE, of course, was paying me a lot of money. ISB was not paying me that much of money. I chose ISB because for me, being with students, being with youngsters, having been a lecturer for 2 years before my MBA, I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
So I let go of money to go join ISB. Okay, so that was my choice. In retrospect, if I have to talk to somebody or think about it, maybe I would have said, I was a fool not to take GE. I would have been on a different tangent altogether. But then I would never have started my library. So you know, it's what choices are individual. So I would not want to say what's more important. It's for the individual to decide. Coming back to my library, for me, what was my driver? Was it, did I break even? Towards the end, I did break even. Okay, so was it a profitable business? No. But was it a satisfying business? Hell yes. Uh, to me, it made a difference when my children, okay, my members. So children were my members. When my members' parents would come and say, Shalaka, thank you. And I'd be like, for what? It's like his teacher complimented him. His comprehension is improved. He started writing better. And I'm not doing any classes. He's only reading books from you and that you recommend. That's an achievement. Um, I've had I've helped a grandmother, and I love this. I've helped a grandmother, a yet to be grandmother, identify and read latest books for children because she said, and she's very practical. She says, my daughter's having a baby. I only know all the old stories. I don't know anything. No, I don't know any contemporary stories. So I introduced her to the new authors like Julia Donaldson, Eric Carle, Oliver Jeffers, all of these guys. Your Noddy and all was always there, but the other new authors, I introduced her to them. Grandmother. So the grandmother actually, when the baby delivered and she started telling the stories, she said more than my grandchild, my daughter is enjoying me telling her the stories because even she was never exposed to them. So it's that human touch. You make a difference. I have seen boys especially come in and look at only the toys. I used to run a book and a toy library. So they would come in and look at only the toys because they're colorful and they're very attractive. And they never looked at the books. And the mother would be very frustrated and say, he doesn't read. I'm like, it's okay. And they'd be like, how can you be so chilled about it? So I was like, no, it's okay. I mean, each one has his own trigger. And sure enough, this happened for like 2 months. The child kept coming in and would only take toys. Mother would try forcing the child to take a book, ek book pad le, ek book pad le. And he'd be like, no, I don't want to read a book. And I'd say, don't push him. One fine day, he came with his mother and he was just browsing the toys. Now, the book covers are equally bright colored, and inviting and interesting looking. So he looked at me and says, Auntie, ye kya hai? He's looking at a book and pointing at a book and says, Auntie, ye kya hai? I said, Khol ke dekh. So he opens the book. And this is the first time he opened a book. He said, Auntie, ye acha hai? I said, to pad ke dekh. You tell me. Mujhe nahi malum, tu pad ke bol. So he took the book home. And he's a converted reader. That gives me satisfaction. So is that money was a driver for me? No, never.
Yes, ma'am. That's really nice to listen about the way you started your library and how it's going on and everything. So thank you, ma'am. This was a really informative session. I really loved it. I learned so much from you. And yeah, and hope the pandemic ends really soon and you can get back to your library really soon. Yes. Thank you,
Cool.
ma'am.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All the best to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
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 Bye.